It's easy to lose sight of yourself after you've been homeschooling for a while. It's easy to feel worn out, feel imbalanced, or disconnected from your true self. In fact, it's even possible, if you're like me, to have discovered that you didn't really know your true self before you went into motherhood, let alone homeschool motherhood. Today, I have the privilege of sharing with you Riley's story. Riley's story involves her becoming more her, becoming authentically aligned with who she is and the role she's taking on, building healthier boundaries, stronger relationships, and even growing in confidence as she's homeschooling.
This is rivalry. We have mom first impressions only, she says. We have Rachel's, if I don't win, someone's gonna die before we leave. And Zachary, I just wanna win. It's not fair. The game goes on.
If you could meet Riley, you'd see that she's a dedicated homeschool mom of 5. She loves hanging out with her kids. She loves learning with her kids. She makes the homeschool co-op a delightful place to be. Her journey is an example of the many challenges that many of us face, because Riley is a composite of many homeschool mom challenges, many homeschool moms that you've likely met, and maybe she represents you. Riley tries to balance the needs of her kids with her own needs, as we all do. And usually the kids' needs win out, especially at this time of year. She's incredibly empathetic, always anticipating other people's needs, and often second-guessing herself when she makes decisions for herself or even for her kids. She struggles with setting boundaries because she's afraid she's going to disappoint the people she cares about, because she wants to create a community of connection around her, so she doesn't want to disappoint them. And despite her desire to connect with others, she tends to hide her true self, because that's what we typically do when we're trying not to disappoint other people. She's worried about being judged and not fitting in. But Riley knew that this wasn't the way she really wanted to show up. In fact, she knew that she needed to bolster boundaries because there were significant boundary breaks in her world. So she was committed to her personal growth journey, and that's why she initially joined me to learn more about coaching. Riley, like many of us, started her homeschool journey with a big heart and all the energy in the world, but somewhere along the way, she began to feel exhausted and anxious and like she was losing a piece of herself. That's when she reached out, because she was ready for change. Riley's journey is really inspiring to me because she had been saying yes to everyone in her world, her friends, her family, anybody in the homeschool co-op, or really anyone that she experienced on the regular. And she rarely thought about her own needs. She was so focused on meeting everyone else's expectations that she rarely gave herself the time or the space to just be Riley. Can you relate? But she came to a point where she realized something had to change, because her constant yes was leaving her drained and anxious and uncertain of who she really was in the big picture. Through our coaching sessions, we worked on helping her rediscover her voice and her needs. Here are the 3 main areas that we focused on in her journey. The first is personal reflection or self-awareness strategies, boundaries, and self-acceptance. The first step for Riley was personal reflection, because she was so busy, she didn't actually have a lot of time or create a lot of time to sit with herself and ask herself what she really needed, and also what's really going on here, what really matters. The next step was setting boundaries, and for Riley, this was really tricky. She had to give herself permission to say no without guilt. Boundaries are often a tough area for homeschool moms. I think actually probably for moms in general, because we feel we have to do all the things and be all the things for everyone. But Riley realized that saying no to what doesn't align with her values was actually saying yes to her true self. Boundaries can be a powerful form of self-respect. We talked about small, everyday ways that she could set boundaries, like protecting her mornings for family time, keeping the phone off the hook during the day, or putting her phone in the other room, saying no to extra responsibilities, and also the things that other people thought, this will be a great idea. Why don't you do this, Riley? And she said, no, it doesn't align with my values. And she even created time and space designated just for her own interests. I encouraged her to view her boundaries not as walls, but as a foundation for her best self to flourish. By setting boundaries, she began to feel lighter and more in control of her life. She wasn't saying yes out of fear or guilt anymore. She was saying yes only to what felt right and true for her and her family. And though it's easy to say no to certain things, the accompanying guilt that comes with saying no when you're not accustomed to saying no was something we had to talk through over the course of time. Ultimately, Riley discovered that she had to work on self-acceptance, that this was one of the most challenging steps, especially when you're used to looking for validation outside of yourself. Riley had to learn how to celebrate her strengths and acknowledge her needs, because she's a human too. She had to acknowledge her needs without guilt. Riley came to realize that her authenticity was her superpower because she was being her. She didn't need to be different. Being her didn't make her less of a mom. It made her the best mom for her kids. And as she learned to accept herself, she felt more grounded and more present, and certainly less guilty when she said no. Riley's journey is a reminder to us that we don't have to fit someone else's mold. Homeschooling authentically means finding what works for you and your family, even if it looks radically different from the norm. And it's okay to set limits, to prioritize your needs, and grow into who you truly are. As Riley started to live with more intention, her homeschool life transformed, her confidence grew. She became a role model of being true Riley. She even inspired others to do that in her homeschool group. Her homeschool co-op shifted to address the real needs of each person in that community. Riley's story is a really great story that helps us see that you can be more fulfilled and more authentic and more connected to the most important people when you lean into who you really are, when you spend time with who you really are, when you give yourself space and address your needs. It might mean you need to make some changes. It might even mean you have to challenge some relationships or how you're showing up in relationships. If you're struggling with boundaries or feeling lost or exhausted, or you just need encouragement, remember that you're not alone. That's why I'm here. You're welcome to book a no obligation conversation to discuss some of these challenges that you identify with Riley. You can start small, just like small steps of self-awareness, like journaling or assessing all of the things that you're doing in a week and saying, does this really align with who I am? And certainly ask yourself every time you feel guilty, when you say, I don't really want to do that thing, then ask yourself why. Do you need to do that thing? Are you doing that just to get someone else's validation? Who is the real you? And does the real you want to really do that? Thank you for joining me today. If you're ready to begin a similar journey to Riley's, make sure you connect with me. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more inspiring content every week. And if this has been encouragement for you, then I ask you to share it with another homeschool mom that you think would benefit too. Until next time, take care of yourself so you can keep nurturing those that you love.